Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It is August 30th, 2022, and we have a lot to talk about despite the fact that it has been so slow out there. I probably should have had Kari add in parentheses here, what happened to the hurricane season so far. That part would be in parentheses because, yes, so far it has not lived up to any of the expectations, but that doesn't mean that September and October will go by with no impacts. And at the end of the day, I think we can all agree, while it is very interesting to track a strong hurricane out over the open water, they become of massive interest when they are going to threaten land, understandably. So we cannot, absolutely, there's no way we're going to know for sure if anything is going to impact land these next 2 months. The first 3 months we got lucky. June, July, and August, a big zero, relatively speaking. I mean, the ace is not even 3, so statistically we could just say it's 0. We've had almost a no-impact Atlantic hurricane season, but to say that it's going to continue through the end of November, well, I mean, that's just foolish because we don't know for sure. So I've got a lot to show you. That's my monologue. Let's get into the weeds of it all and see what we got out there. All right? All right. Good to have you with me here. So in the Atlantic, there's 91L. This is another system coming off Africa. We'll talk about especially 91 here in more detail as I go forward. In the East Pac, not too much of a concern with this system. It should stay off the Baja California coast and the coast of Mexico because there's a nice big area of high pressure sitting up here, making it very, very hot in the southwest once again. The monsoon is taking a bit of a break. But then this system, we really need to watch this closely, and I will show you why as we go forward. All right, satellite animation this afternoon. Interesting little feature here, a blow-up of convection in the Caribbean Sea. Remember the GFS was trying to develop this? Of course you do. And it was sending it across the Yucatan towards Mexico, and maybe another run it was up towards Texas. Well, I don't think we have to worry about any of that happening. We'll put a big green X in here. And the reasons why I'll present to you as we go forward. So, yeah, there is some deep thunderstorm activity there, but I don't really think it's going to develop into much. There is some broad turning here. That's that one system in the eastern Pacific that should go on up this way to develop eventually, probably becoming a hurricane, and why not? That's where most of the activity has been this year. But then this piece of energy through here, it is related, should develop some vorticity down in this region near the Gulf of Tehuantepec. That's further up here. And eventually develop and head off potentially now towards our friends over here along the Baja region. Again, we'll take a look at that in more detail. I think it could be a pretty important weather maker going forward. Meanwhile, there's 91L, very discombobulated, a couple of areas of deeper thunderstorms, lots of dry air out there. We'll talk about that as well as we move forward here. All right, first of all, or second or third of all, whatever you want to call it, out in the western Pacific, we do have this super typhoon. I think you pronounce it Hinamnor, something like that. I do know that it is a super typhoon, meaning that it is, my air tags again, very powerful. If I shake the desk just right, the air tags go off, and Matt probably gets a notification on his iPhone. Anyhow, if it's not one distraction around here, it's another sometimes. Inside story, inside joke. No joking aside, though, an interesting super typhoon for a lot of reasons. First, it's been dead out there all season long, and then all of a sudden, boom, there is this super typhoon. Look at it, too. Notice here these latitude lines, 26, 27. That's fairly far to the north. It's not way down in the Philippine Sea at 10, 11, 12, 13 north and whatever. It's pretty far to the north. These I got to calm down. These are the southern islands of Japan. How you say that? The Ryukyus or something like that. And I'll broaden the picture out and show you in just a moment. It's also moving southwest a little bit. It's not due west. It's not moving north. But very important to note, it is a very powerful super typhoon in an otherwise very inactive, key word there, inactive, typhoon season. Right? Right. Now, what is it going to do? This is also very interesting. This is the GFS. What are we looking at? First of all, there's the eastern, well, let's use black here to make it stand out better. There's eastern China, This would be Taiwan, northern parts of the Philippines. There's Japan, the main islands anyway. And these are your Ryukyu Islands, I believe they are called. And there is the Super Typhoon in the GFS at about 5,000 feet up. There's the surface pressure analyzed by the GFS. And then there's another little system down here. And then just this overall oblong-shaped wind field where everything seems to try to interact with itself or each other. Isn't that interesting? See how that works there? Back it up, go forward. It goes just southwest. The core might even miss the Ryukyu region, the southern islands there. James Reynolds is heading there from the Tokyo region. Might have already landed by now. I'll have to check his Twitter. But it's interesting. It dives to the southwest, kind of pivoting around this other piece of energy out here in just this larger gyre. Gosh, I mean, just what a wacky time it has been these last few months for all things related to the weather. You know, we've had a strong monsoon, flooding in Pakistan, the heat waves, the fires in Europe. Now this, it's crazy. It really, really is. And then you see this, it strengthens, it comes back up. We're only at day 5, and it strengthens to 916 millibars to the east of mainland China. I mean, it's just beyond bonkers. And just go back, show you the evolution of this. Yeah, that is a crazy looking pattern overall, but it's very important, and I'll tell you why, more so than just what you see here. There's more to the story, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. All right, first, let's go back to the Atlantic Basin real quick. Vorticity-wise, yeah, there's a little bit over here, but more of it is starting to develop down here in the eastern Pacific. Why does that happen? You know, that's one of the mysteries. You know, we do have some energy here, some of the cloudiness and convection there. Why won't that go on to develop like the GFS was showing? I don't know. Sometimes we just don't know. And it looks like this is going to take over and eventually develop and head up this way. Sometimes we just don't know the reasons why different pieces of energy take off and others do not. Another interesting thing, look at the vorticity associated with 91L. It is like one of those worms or whatever on that game Slither. All you gamers out there, remember that game Slither? I certainly remember it. It gave me anxiety. I was just trying to play that thing. By the way, that's what I should do. If this whole hurricane thing starts to just kind of wane away, maybe we're entering a period where there just aren't many hurricanes anymore, I'll just start playing games and you can watch the comedy associated with that, especially the new stuff, Minecraft or whatever. Back to seriousness now. That it looks like a slither worm, notwithstanding. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Slither, the game, and you'll see. It is stretched out, that vorticity, but I find it absolutely just mind-blowing. What is it? Look, a little piece there, a little piece there, a little piece there. There's like 7 of them out there, all up in the higher latitudes. And these ones down in the low latitudes can't do anything. It's broken. The system is broken. It's been a good run. Y'all have a great rest of your day. No, I'm just kidding. It is really weird, though. So what is happening with it? Well, here's my theory. And I've seen other people bring this up, and so we're all in kind of agreement here. A lot of different people wondering about what's happening, from the volcano back in the winter to other just really bizarre whatever that is not even worth mentioning. But I think a more factual, scientific approach is simple physics, that what goes up must come down on this planet. It typically works that way, especially in the atmosphere. Rising motion in one part of the atmosphere tends to have sinking motion outside of that area. Rising and falling of air. We have that all the time. And this very warm area of water in the North Atlantic and this very warm area of water in the North Pacific has been maybe responsible partly for what we've seen with the dearth of activity in this area. And dearth means lack of, in case you didn't know, in the Atlantic as well. The lack of activity. Maybe because all of that warm water way up in the high latitudes is distorting the overall pattern, because you've got all that upward motion up there in the high latitudes. And that does a whole bunch of other things too, with the steering patterns, with your wave breaking, and all these intricate meteorological puzzle pieces. But for you folks, I want to keep it simple, that maybe all of that really warm water is distorting things and adding more sinking air in the tropics. That makes sense. That is a logical thing to follow. Now, that being said, we have our super typhoon over here that could dance around and do whatever over here. Interesting that it's not going to curve into the westerlies. It does not appear that that's going to happen. But what about 91L sitting out here now and what it might do in relation to all of this? Ooh, wait till I show you that in just a little bit here. All right? All right. Before we get to that, little cliffhanger for you. Actual sea surface temperatures. Hey, this is a good time. You're coming down to the beaches for Labor Day weekend, the unofficial end of summer. Very nice. Outer Banks, 26, 27 Celsius. Down in my neck of the woods, the Cape Fear region, 27 or 81, 27 Celsius, 81 Fahrenheit. Off the coast of Georgia, the Carolina, South Carolina coast, the low country, all the way down off the east coast of Florida. Nice and toasty for sure. The way I like it. That's what I like. Gulf of Mexico. And look, this is another reason. Look at all that. 30 Celsius, all these islands of 31. If you think that a hurricane coming into that environment, given the right upper level conditions, wouldn't cause an absolute catastrophe, stop watching. Like, just stop. Turn the video off and go do something else, because this is still very much there. And this has nothing to do with what's going on in the deep tropics or the North Atlantic. You get one brief window. Think about Michael 2018. It had 3 days where it took advantage of a perfect environment, and look what happened. And by the way, I saw where Toucans is hopefully coming back. I saw a tweet from them, Toucans of Mexico Beach, breaking ground on their restaurant once again. I'll have to follow up with those owners. I met them after Michael. Real good people down there. I hope it does come back. But that's an example. It only takes one. And in 2018, it was two, Florence and Michael. But Michael was that Cat 5 in October. Please don't forget that. Very important. Gulf is absolutely warm enough. And nothing that's going on the Atlantic side, out in the Atlantic Ocean itself, is going to impact the Gulf right now. Something can sneak in there, and we could have major problems. All right, to the GFS and our 91L. First of all, there it is down there. The vorticity signature captured pretty well, all elongated and just not, it's not bundled. These are your different pockets of vorticity elsewhere in the Atlantic that I was showing you. That's the very large piece of energy off of Africa. Not much showing up in the modeling for the Caribbean system. The GFS finally let it go, as the saying goes. And then there's that energy currently in the Eastern Pacific that should slide on off well away from Mexico. So let's put this into motion. Get rid of yours truly, and let's watch what happens. Mainly keeping your eye on this right here. All right? All right, here we go. So moving on out 2, 3, 4, 5 days by 120 hours. Our good friend the GFS thinks, so to speak, air quotes there, thinks that that'll develop into a tropical cyclone and be well south of Bermuda, and then it goes up. And by the way, where is Bermuda? Bermuda is right there. I'll just draw a line right through it. That's Bermuda right there. And this would go on up and around south and east of Bermuda. No harm, no foul, right? Maybe some swells for the East Coast, that kind of thing. But look what the GFS does with it. I think that this could be a very important turn of events, because the GFS gets this into these higher latitudes over here of the North Atlantic. In fact, Levi, Dr. Cowan, allows you to mouse it over. And look, 49, let's just round it up and call it, well, actually, that's the longitude, my fault. The latitude's on the left. 35 degrees north latitude, and then it gets up into a little bit higher latitudes from there, south of the Azores. But the point is, going back to this map, these areas here, there's 35 north. Look at all that warm water north of that area. If this comes up and mills around through here for about 5, 6, 7 days, it's going to take some of that heat out. It absolutely will. Maybe, and just follow me here, maybe if this develops, it will be enough of a upper ocean heat content deplenisher to change the balance just enough that as we get to mid-September and beyond, it gets tipped back into more of a favorable setup. I don't know. It is something to consider, especially if, and I'm just hypothesizing here, this particular system is larger and farther north than the GFS is depicting. Maybe it goes between Bermuda and Hatteras, and it's sitting up here somewhere. And it's larger, has a bigger influence. There's a lot of possibilities here. I think that's an interesting thing because that's what these things do. They remove heat from the tropics, but they also take out available upper ocean heat content, which is energy. And this looks like it could mill around out there for several days if it does come to pass. But the Euro says, nope, nothing's going to happen with it. I think that's just hilarious. And in fact, the Euro wants to develop this piece of vorticity way up in the far North Atlantic there, getting close to 40 degrees of latitude, and it dances around in the areas south of Greenland there at about 46 degrees north latitude. I mean, come on. But if this happens, even if this happens, that's a lot of mixing of the sea surface temperatures up there as well. But you know what? It's very, very aggravating that you can't even look to the two superpower global models. Typically, the GFS and the Euro are considered the best. They both have such disagreements here that I don't know what's going to happen with 91L. I mean, we just don't know. But if it does develop and it dances around the North Atlantic, that could be an interesting catalyst, perhaps, of something changing as we get to the middle part of September, with still plenty of time left on the clock for something to impact the U.S. You follow me? All right, I think that makes sense. And furthermore, the Euro here, the ECMWF for the Madden-Julian Oscillation, right now we're in the waning days of its influence. It'll dance into the null phase of no appreciable MJO activity, but look closely. Yes, there are a lot of members that bring it out into phases 4 and 5, but there are also members that try to hook it left right back towards phases 8 and 1, and by deduction, eventually maybe back into phase 2. Quite favorable for the Eastern Pacific, the Western Caribbean, hint, hint, the Western Atlantic, the Gulf, absolutely. And when is this? Getting into September, when we look that way anyway. Less in the main development region, more towards the western parts of the basin, right as all of this starts to happen. And, just to throw this in there as well, the JMA also shows much more of this turn. I mean, none of those members go all over here. This is much more concentrated. You could ask the obvious, well, which one's going to be right? And I would say, I have no clue. That's what makes this interesting. We don't know anything for sure. So these little blanket statements of, it's over, it's done, they screwed up, nothing's going to happen. Hey man, whatever. You can say that, you have the right to. But I have the right, and I enjoy doing this, to show you what we have in front of us using the tools that are available. And they suggest very strongly, it is not over, not by any stretch. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. There's always that, right? All right, let's wrap this up here, at least get close to it. Interesting tweet by our good friend Eric Webb. Very important statement. It is true. Not a forecast. It's not. It is just the model output from the GFS. This is the Baja here. Powerful hurricane. It shows coming up, the GFS does, after about 8, 9, 10, 11 days, something like that. And that would be important for a lot of reasons. Big time moisture perhaps for the desert southwest. Potentially a hurricane threat for the Baja, and for our purposes, it just so happens, just by coincidence, our good friend and colleague and all-around MacGyver guy, Brent, he's going to be in the Baja down at Cabo San Lucas this weekend for a wedding, his cousin, and then he's going to stay, as long as it takes. Maybe that's going to be knocking on the door. And I was just talking to a couple of other colleagues, maybe Brent would cover potentially, this is not a forecast here, but if that were to happen, Brent could cover it in Cabo. I could cover the potential flood threat to the desert southwest. You guys know me by now. That is what I'm all about. These impacts from tropical cyclones, especially in areas that they don't usually impact. Something off, a little different. And southwest moisture feeds from a dying tropical cyclone, especially with an active monsoon season where everything's been wet or wetter. This could be a big problem, so we really need to watch this. It's got both positive and negative implications down the road. And it's interesting because right now out here, it's hot, lots of heat advisories and excessive heat warnings, where we've just been very wet with the active monsoon. So we will certainly be watching that very closely. In the modeling, this is also very interesting. I'll show you this as we wrap it up. There's our big area of high pressure sitting out over the west right now. That's Utah there. There's Arizona, Nevada, and California. And then the Baja, there's Cabo San Lucas down there. And this big dome of high pressure going to protect the area from the first hurricane that slides up there. It cannot run into this big mountain of air. It just doesn't work that way. This is lower pressure. This is big high pressure, much thicker in the atmosphere. So the hurricane kind of bounces off of it, if you will, and eventually heads out into the Pacific, as you can see. But after about day 8 or so, that high pressure pattern starts to change, maybe, and that opens the door. If there's less high pressure up here, there's less resistance. So that tropical cyclone that the modeling is showing, that the NHC outlines out there, just might have a pathway towards the Baja as we go forward. This is way out in time, admittedly, and just like the Atlantic, showing a 10-day graphic without any context is a big no-no. But this does have context, and I'm going to tell you, that is a big signal right there. That trough crashing into the west, that's pretty big. We'll see if it happens, and if the other modeling is showing it as well. Huge implications for our friends out there if that does happen. All right, so real quick before I let you go, I haven't talked about Patreon in a while. We do have this great graphic that Kari put together. There's much more to it than just the landfall events. We've got our Discord going, which has been absolutely fantastic. We've seen that grow. So if you're interested in supporting the project and you've just got a deep interest in weather beyond these updates, that's what we do. We talk about it on our Discord almost 24 hours a day, especially with people scattered all over the world, but like we have. And it's a great way to support what we're doing year-round. So go to Patreon, get the app off the various app stores, either Google or Apple, right? And search HurricaneTrack and pick the level that's right for you, and get involved, join up, and we'd love to see you on the Discord at the very least. And then when stuff does happen, whatever it may be, winter storms, severe weather in the spring, and then of course hurricanes are the big draw. I get that. Certainly, that's why it is HurricaneTrack. But we're all weather geeks, at least most of us are, I think. I know you guys enough. And that's what our Discord and our Patreon and all that is connected. That's what it's for. So hope to see you there. All right? I told you this is going to be lengthy. We're going to cover a lot, and I did. And I appreciate you being here to hear it and digest it and take it all in. Do me a favor, though. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, or if you've been watching for a while and you just haven't done it yet. Make those numbers go up, please. It's nice to see. I appreciate the people watching. We look at a daily view count. We see that a few thousand people have tuned in. That really makes me feel good. It really does. And like I've said before, and I know I'm going to invite whatever when you say this. It's like knocking on wood when you say something positive. Most everybody is extremely positive, and that goes a long way towards the audience that we have and says a lot about you guys. So I appreciate that more than you know. All right, there you go. That's it. I'm done. Let's get this online for you. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack. That's us. I'll talk to you again with the What's Up segment tomorrow morning.